The offseason moves that they regret and the one that they still need to make, as the Cowboys, of course, are getting ready for training camp here. It starts July 26th. We are your home of the Cowboys, which means we'll have you covered for all things Dallas Cowboys training camp. And some interesting conversation around this one because, a lot has been made about the moves that the Cowboys made this offseason, about who they let go. Amari Cooper, La'el Collins, Cedric Wilson, Connor Williams, among others that are no longer a part of this team. And a couple of moves that people still wanted this team to make with respect to possibly shoring up the defensive line, maybe seeking out some additional wide receiver help, given how the wide receiver room at the moment isn't necessarily the strongest if you feel like CeeDee Lamb, James Washington, Jalen Tolbert aren't your cup of tea that you want to see running around for the Cowboys wide receiver position. But Rez, you brought this up to me as we were getting ready for the show here. Offseason moves to regret when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys and maybe some other teams.
Yeah, this comes courtesy of Bleacher Report, Christopher Knox over there. And he gave one big regret every NFL team should have from the 2022 offseason. And for the Cowboys, it's one that KG I know is near and dear to your heart, one that you care a lot about. It's the Cowboys' decision to trade Amari Cooper to the Browns. And at the time, he writes that, it seemed made some sense. They were tight on the cap space. They wanted out from under his 5-year, $100 million deal. However, the Cowboys erred on two fronts, he says. They let slip that they would release Cooper if they couldn't reach a trade, which, underestimated the receiver trade market. And then, little leverage. The Cowboys sent Cooper to the Browns for only a 5th-round pick and a swap of 6-rounders, right? And then after that, the receiver market exploded, like very quickly after. Remember, that was when we found out that Mike Williams got a whole bunch of money, and then we found out that they went and got Allen Robinson. We saw Christian Kirk get a whole bunch of money.
That's when it just went real silly season.
So Devontae Adams, netted big trade. Tyreek Hill netted a big trade. A.J. Brown netted a pretty big trade. I mean, a 1st-rounder got traded for Marquise Brown, first and a third. So they should have been able to get a day 2 pick and they didn't. They got a day 3 pick, and that's what Bleacher Report points to as the Cowboys' biggest mistake. Do you agree of this offseason that's the one that's gonna haunt them?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest one. I think an underrated move that now, Bobby Belt's talked about this and others have talked about this as well, is that they don't feel like, for example, with La'el Collins and Terrence Steele, the Cowboys appearing to feel like they made the better of the decisions to keep Terrence Steele over La'el Collins. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I thought Terrence Steele was very good to the first 6-7 games last year and provided you some really good substitution play while La'el Collins was out. But we'll see how that works out on the right side of the line. But I think the one that they'll ultimately come to regret is the Amari Cooper. But they telegraphed this one from a mile away when they didn't restructure his deal last year and tried to make him and ensure that he was a part of the roster this upcoming year. So it always felt like the plan was for CeeDee Lamb to assume that number 1 wide receiver role, and now he's got the chance to step in and do it. We'll see how that situation plays out in Cleveland with, Deshaun Watson and possibly getting suspended for a year and how that affects Amari Cooper this upcoming year. But I think ultimately that's the one for me I think the Cowboys will come to regret the most, is letting Amari Cooper go, no matter how much they felt like they wanted to move on for him based on what he was or wasn't as a receiver for them anymore.
Yeah, Swaggy Booties on the Twitch chat agrees, says the only regret is only getting a 5th when Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown, only got a 1st-round pick, right? Like,
I love how you refuse to call him Hollywood.
It just don't feel right to me personally. I'm not saying you don't got.
I just find it funny that you actively go out of your way to make sure that cat is referred to as his government name in Marquise.
It just don't feel right to me. So I'm going to say what feels comfortable. I mean no disrespect.
He hasn't earned the Hollywood title.
It's not even about earning it. Hey. His name is Marquise. I'm going to call him Marquise. Are there any other teams that you're interested in, like their big mistake or the big regrets?
Let's see here. Let's stick in the NFC East. I'm interested to see what they feel like it was for Washington. Because obviously, I think the move that they're going to ultimately regret is thinking that Carson Wentz was good at quarterback and bringing him in.
Bingo, trading for Carson Wentz.
Oh, really? That's the one?
I mean, that's okay. So he writes that Washington joined the quarterback carousel when they acquired Wentz. The price wasn't exceedingly steep, but it wasn't very good either. And towards the end of his time with the Eagles, Wentz was a borderline disaster, he writes. But Wentz was better statistically with Indianapolis, posting 27 touchdown passes, 7 interceptions, and a 94.6 rating. But he struggled down the stretch, right? So he went to a 9-18 with a loaded Colts team and stumbled down the stretch. So is Wentz better than the incumbent? Maybe, but he isn't likely to fit a squad, or lift a squad rather, that went 7-10. And I think that's the issue that they point to. It's like you paid, maybe not a king's ransom, but you paid for a talent that probably doesn't elevate your team.
It's just amazing. We talk about this all the time when it comes to the NFL and being a quarterback-driven league, how desperate some of these teams are to try and find some measure of good at quarterback. That Washington looked around and said, you know what? Yeah, let's run that thing with Carson Wentz to see if that works out. After the Indianapolis Colts looked at their situation and they said, yep, the dude who we thought could be the whisperer to fix Carson Wentz, yep, that didn't work either. You can go ahead and go as well. And they moved him out of there. So for Washington, I don't know if that will work out when it comes to Carson Wentz. But, hey, he'll be in the back end of the division that he's obviously familiar with when it comes to the NFC East this upcoming season.
Yeah, I wonder if they were just in a place where they realized, don't nobody want us, and then they looked around and they decided, how do we get a quarterback? I don't know how the decision was, let's pay for Carson Wentz instead of let's wait for let's just try and kick this down the road and draft a quarterback next year. But I guess that's not always the easy thing to do either. From the 817, they disagree with Bleacher Report's assertion that it was the Amari Cooper. They said losing Cooper was nothing compared to Gregory. Do you agree? Because I do understand that idea, if for no other reason than it was wildly embarrassing the way that it happened, and that it became a subject of conversation over multiple days, how you let that thing slip.
Yeah, I think that's what it is for me. It was ultimately embarrassing because they wanted to bring him back. They wanted him to be in the fold, and they felt like he was going to take the next step with, being able to play and, overcoming injury, suspension, all the things that Randy Gregory had dealt with during his time in Dallas. I think they finally felt that he had turned the corner and was going to be able to produce for them at the level that he felt they felt he was capable at. And for the way to all that go down the way it did, I think it was more embarrassing than anything. But they feel like drafting Sam Williams, bringing in Dante Fowler Jr., and also, with who's the other guy?
Dorrance Armstrong.
Yeah, they feel like
Basham.
One of those dudes has got to step up and take the reins of that job in order to feel like you're not going to regret that move.
All right, so you could use the word Ghana in a couple of ways, right? You could say that as a prediction, or you could say that as a demand. Which one do you think that is, right? When you say one of those guys has got to stand up, do you say like...
That's a demand.
Yeah, but that's the thing is like you're not saying that as a prediction. Like we don't know that to be something that, okay, well, one of those guys has to have... I don't know that you could say that with the level of certainty, and that's why you look at the Cowboys, particularly because they changed tunes. They was out here happy about Randy Gregory, and now they're trying to play the X... That is, no, man, I dumped her. She ain't dumped me.
She wasn't all that great. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing is that none of it comes off with sincerity because of all of that.